welcome everyone. Welcome to another astral interview. And here with me I have Sharif Bey. Is that how I say it?
That's how you say it. That's right.
Okay. Tell us about yourself, Sharif. Tell us about you. Tell us about your life. Tell us where you grew up. Tell us a little bit about your history.
Sure. Well, my name is Sharif Anael-Bey. I presently live in upstate New York, Syracuse, New York. I own and operate a martial arts business.
Okay.
So that's what I do. I'm a lifelong martial artist. I practice and study and research the Chinese martial arts. Arts from southern China. That includes, the Chinese martial arts, especially my particular one, includes as a foundation, as part of the foundation, bioenergetic work.
Amazing. Wow.
Go ahead. Okay. I was born out west. I was born in Long Beach, California, and then grew up in New York City.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your life. Like what got you into Chinese martial arts? What happened in your life that got you there?
I went to live at age 4. I came to the East Coast to live with my father. He took me to a martial arts demonstration, and it kind of chose me.
Wow.
At age 4, I saw the demonstration, went crazy, started breaking furniture, practicing on it. For my 5th birthday, he bought me martial arts lessons.
Wow, nice.
So that one singular act by my father at age 5 set me on my life course.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, tell me more. Tell me about.
Wow. Well, again, lifelong martial artist, and it was through my studies in Chinese martial arts, and specifically the bioenergetic aspect of the training. Specifically, the bioenergetic aspect of the training that led me into what people call metaphysics. I'm a firm believer that it's only called metaphysics in the West as a result of, old world Western social norms that were forced upon society through things like Spanish Inquisition.
Okay, that's a very important point. So how do you think metaphysics came to the West then?
Well, that's let's just say that as the old world was going into decline and the new world was emerging, members of the old world made sure that some of the old world ideas were passed to the new world, if any other way, but in secret.
So let's define what old world and new world is then.
A very prolific and knowledgeable researcher and writer by the name of James Reston Jr. wrote in a book, The Dogs of God. In his book, The Dogs of God.
The Dogs of God, okay.
The Dogs of God, and the crux of it, or the starting point for the book, is he's detailing events around the year 1492 in the fall of the old world rule in Granada, Spain.
Right. So
facilitated by Ferdinand and Isabella. And then 2 months later, Columbus sailing the ocean blue. So the whole discovery of the new world came as a result of old world civilization falling in Spain.
In Spain. So let's compare now. Okay, so we have the Spanish Inquisition.
Yes.
We have the conquests that happened at that time.
Absolutely.
We have the Crusaders.
Yes.
And then we have the Islamic.
Absolutely.
The
Western occult tradition, the Western magical tradition, the Western magical revival, owes its very existence to a secret alliance between the Templars and the Muslims.
And the Assassins.
That's right.
Okay. I was born a Smiley Muslim, which is where the Assassins, which is our history, right? So
Wow. Okay, that's beautiful. My family and my religious organization have direct ties to that history.
Wow. So this
Specifically,
was
specifically,
this connection is God driven, obviously.
right. That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
then let's go into that, because I'm not so, I am passionate about Western metaphysics, but I'm even more passionate about Islamic and Eastern metaphysics.
Well, and this is not to take anything away from the Western.
No, of course not.
Things,
of course not.
A lot of them, and this is in tune with the historical fact of the Spanish Inquisition and the fall of old world norms, old world worldview, and the rise of new world worldview, that a lot of the mysteries were what we call Christianized, right? Or what's called cleansed. Right? So in truth, what we're looking at is like what people did, let's say in Latin America with Santeria, which is they took the old world Yoruba tradition from West Africa and infused it with the appearance of Roman Catholicism for the purpose of making sure they didn't get, to avoid persecution. So outwardly it looked as if they were practicing Roman Catholicism, but inwardly they were still practicing their ancient traditions. So this happened in reverse.
I see.
In this respect. So a lot of what we're practicing is the Western occult tradition is actually old Islamic, old world worldview.
Wow.
Masquerading for the purpose of avoiding persecution.
So what was their motivation of doing this? Because they persecuted, they avoided it for millennia, and now what was their motivation for bringing it into their reality?
Well, power is power. It's what ruled the world. It's what ruled and guided the Western world for nearly 800 years. If we count back from 711 AD, when Tariq ibn Zayd and his armies went into Spain from North Africa. If we count from that point, then that's what guided the entire Western world up until the end of the 15th century.
Wow.
And actually beyond. So
and beyond.
Yes.
So let's now forget about your history just for 1 second and go further into history. Let's go further, like I'm talking 6,000 years into history.
Yes.
Talk to me about how we got here.
As in
Sumerian history, or as
okay.
Because we have to, because we've brought this subject up now. There has to be like the backdrop of it.
I'd like to share the position of my religious organization,
please,
as it relates to this.
Sure.
So we'll say we say in our tradition, time never was when man was not.
Right.
Right? And if man is actually spirit in flesh,
right,
then our terrestrial origins are off-world.
Right. Of
course. We have an off-world legacy.
Right.
You see?
I see.
And as opposed to, appearing
off this world legacy.
Correct. Right. And that off-world, could it be what we would call extraterrestrial? Sure, but definitely is ultra-terrestrial. So it's less of a matter of altitude, more of a matter of amplitude.
Ah, okay.
And this is also in line now with a number of the secret space program insiders and the like, who say that the majority of the travel of our off-world visitors is more of traveling from the spaces in between the spaces, so to speak.
Okay.
So we're talking about interdimensional travel.
Interdimensional, parallel universes, etc. Okay.
Absolutely. And so, and that being said, so our emergence in the physical, contrary to the Darwinist influenced thinking, was
Right.
not linear from a primitive state to an advanced state, but
It was
arrival in an advanced state and then went through cycles.
cyclical. Yeah.
There you go. Cycles of a peak in technological advancement, and then a fall from it, and then a peak and then a fall, then a peak and then a fall, which much better explains the whole ancient alien, ideal of why are we seeing this high technology or evidence of high technology thousands and thousands and thousands of years prior.
Right. Because it's coexisting with us, really. Yes, it's not in some past state.
And this, and you know what, this ties into what we just spoke about earlier. This is introducing the old world view. This was the thinking of,
right.
This was the normal thinking thousands of years ago. And
except for the esoteric believers who actually, I think, understood it naturally or organically. It wasn't something that needed to be explained to them because it was already in their DNA, so to speak.
Hence what I said before about us using the term metaphysical. It's like using the term ESP. To who? It's right. Extra to who? It's only extra to the people who are not familiar. And our view is, if it's possible, we can train it. If we can train it, we can turn the abnormal into the routine.
Right.
So at that point, it's no longer ESP.
No.
It's just normal sensory perception.
Right. Right, because it's innate in us. We've forgotten or right. And even this idea of metaphysics, I mean, I don't believe metaphysics can be taught to anyone unless if it's innately in them already anyways.
In my martial arts in martial arts period, we came out of the womb fighting.
Right.
We're not teaching you how to fight. You already know how to do that.
Right.
We're training you to be better at something you naturally do already.
Right.
Yes.
So you're basically tweaking the principles of what it is. Yeah.
There you go. Yes, man. So if we have a technique called a tiger claw, okay, right. And we have methods of training it to make it strong, make it whatever, you grab people naturally anyway.
Right.
That's just a natural thing, to grab clothing or to grab an object. We're just now giving you better better means to do so, to do what you would naturally do. If I have, if my desire is to communicate with you, right? And so there's many ways I can facilitate a better way to do it. This is one. Another one is this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So in your martial arts, then, do you train extrasensory perception?
I love the question, and it's kind of this is in tune with what you had just said a few minutes ago. Like, let's say power, like punching power or kicking power. We say that power is a result; it's not an effort.
Right.
So instead of, okay, I need to put more power into it. No, it's I need to bring about, the effort is bringing about all the components that make greater power the result.
Right.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is it not true that when you say that, make greater power the result, is it not true that power can only exist if you are in a state of union with the oneness yourself?
Let's just talk martial arts power, right?
Okay.
One of the things my instructor has said to us, the amount of power you're able to release is directly proportionate to the amount of ego you're able to let go.
Wow.
Directly proportionate. What happens a lot of times is that people will tighten their body up and punch super hard like this. And what they're really doing is providing resistance to their own self. And then they'll say, that was a hard punch. And you say, how do you know? They say, because I could feel it. Well, what's the point in that? I thought the other guy was supposed to feel it. Why do you feel it? That's like me shooting myself and saying, hey, that's a strong gun. Makes no sense at all. I have to be able to let it go.
Right.
I have to be able to let go.
There was a Buddhist priest I interviewed years ago, and when you shook his hand was like water. It just kind of, and he explained that to me. He's like, no, the key isn't to be tense, right? If you're tense, then that's not it. You want to relax completely.
That is the fact. To be tense like this says to the world, the outside world, that it's an enemy and I have to shut it out. From the spiritual perspective, that's the beginning of cancer.
Right.
You see? Yeah, instead of, and so, but back on what I was saying before about the whole power thing and relating it to, let's say, extrasensory perception and those types of things. Our martial arts, and not just our martial arts practice, but our martial arts practice develops the things inside the body and the mind that makes those things much more easily manifested. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to train you to read minds, instead of saying that, we'll say, hey, we're going to train these particular mechanisms in the body. And then as a result, the feedback loop is your body, is you doing those things and going, wow, this is a result. It's the result.
It's the result. And does it have to be martial arts then? But in a sense, I guess it does, because you do need to train your body.
Well, you know what you need? Watch this, just like lifting weights. Without a foe, a soldier never knows its strength. So you have to have that creative tension. So I lift the weights to break down old muscle tissue and then rebuild it stronger. So you need some kind of resistance. Psychologically, for us as human beings now, the greatest resistance that we can provide it is the idea of contemplating our own mortality.
Wow.
You see, that's what makes martial arts a spiritual pursuit, because you have to contemplate your mortality and what comes after.
Right.
You see?
Because in every engagement, you're in a state of fear and in a state of rebellion, I guess.
You're practicing to die. In the extreme, only one person gets to improve their skill. So even just training, if I miss a punch or miss a kick or don't do something right, symbolically I died.
Right.
Yes.
Wow. So really, martial arts isn't a training of force. It's a training of energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Especially my particular Kung Fu style is, okay, you've heard of the term Qigong.
Yes, I have.
Qigong has 3 general categorizations. Okay. We have what we call health or medical Qigong. The objective of health or medical Qigong is to balance and regulate the body's energy to provide a solid foundation for radiant health.
Okay.
Radiant health isn't like what we get a clean bill of health from the doctor. That means you were not sick that day.
Right.
Radiant health it's the beginning of the school year and you're around a bunch of runny nose first graders and you don't get sick. That's what we call radiant health. And then you have what we call martial or military Qigong.
Okay.
Martial Qigong is to amplify that energy so that it amplifies, you use that energy to amplify the body mechanism to beyond its normal human capacity for combat.
Okay.
Of course, it still has the health benefits even more so.
Of course, yeah.
But there's also dangers because you're now kind of like jailbreaking the body, so to speak.
Right. So why would there be dangers?
Oh, well, it's just like athletic dangers. You know, I'm training, but improper training, I can injure myself.
I see.
Sprain an ankle. I can, there
right.
you go. So we can do the same types of things energetically.
So when you're energetically sound, your body is more what's the word? More agile?
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. 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 More agile, stronger, faster, more sensitive. All
Right.
of these things. Yes, yes, absolutely. To put in it, to oversimplify, you become more human, or you
Right.
begin to discover more of what being human actually is.
So then also though, that's only true if you stay in the zone. As soon as you get out of the zone, you might sprain an ankle or whatever it is as a result
Okay.
of coming out of the zone, right?
Now, okay, I'm glad you brought that up. So the
I
idea,
sprain my ankle a lot.
yes. So the idea for us at least, the idea of the bioenergetic training is to also transform the body. So one of the things that we do with the internal energy, the bioenergy, is we make it more dense. We solidify it more.
Wow.
So it's like concretization of the ideal. We want the energy, especially with martial arts, we want the bioenergy to be physically felt, not just by me, but by the other person. So you're really building up strong power.
Okay, so let's talk about this bioenergy now, because you've mentioned it many, many times, and you say it's an integral part of martial arts.
Yes.
So when you're in the act of your martial arts,
yes,
you have an awareness, first of all, of this bioenergy.
Yes.
Let's first of all define bioenergy.
Okay, let's define it.
Yes.
Sure. Bioenergy, right? See, well, wow, that's vast.
Of course.
There's so many different functions in the physical body alone.
Right.
That are energetic.
Right.
Right. From breathing to the parasympathetic
nervous.
There you go. All of these things. So let's take bioenergy in Chinese medicine. 3 levels, what we call the 3 treasures, 3 different sources of bioenergy.
Okay.
One is the most dense, one is more rarefied. So let's start with the most dense. The most dense we call essence. It's what you were born with, what came to you from your parents, your ancestral energy, your battery. Some people came with a lot, some people came with a little. It's like some people born sickly, some people born very robust. You see? You can't get more of it from the general perspective, but you can improve its quality.
Right.
Now, then you have what we call energy or chi, right?
Right.
Chi, in this case, after you're born, what we call postnatal, is the energy you get from food and from breathing. It's combustive energy. That energy, you see, okay, that energy is produced in the area around the solar plexus, stomach, spleen, liver, gallbladder, right? Essence is seated in the sexual organs and in the kidneys, your battery that came through your ancestry, right? Okay, at the higher level is what we call san or shen, spirit.
Right.
That's centered here. This is the energy you get from thought.
Okay.
I'll give a simple example.
Okay.
You're doing, let's pick the insanity workout.
Okay, what is the insanity?
It's this beach body program. You can get it on, you put it on your television and you do this 45-minute workout, and it's very intense.
Okay.
So people are doing it, and then they hit the endurance wall and just boom, oh my God, I'm so tired. And so you're doing that workout, and all of a sudden you get that physical fatigue where you feel like I can't go any further, but you're motivated up here, or the guy on the TV is motivating you. And somehow you crank out 3 more repetitions when your body was spent.
Right.
What you did then was
you broke the barrier.
The energy from here with the right amount of focus so that it would physically energize your body.
Right.
And that's how you were able to get out 3 more repetitions when your body was totally spent.
So you broke your mind-body barrier then at that time as well. Yes. And if you're expending your energy from here versus your solar, I guess it was your solar plexus before, and then you're in the center of your head in this case. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because where does the energy come from when you're physically moving? in the first place.
What we're used to for in terms of physical activity, we're used to
Yeah.
what we call glycogen, or in other words, the carbohydrate or the sugars, that we get a lot of times from carbohydrates. That's what's fueling the body. And then when, let's say you burnt all of that up, your body will switch from glycogen, hopefully, if you keep going, to what we call ATP, adenyl triphosphate. That's when you're in the fat burning stage. Your body is now burning its reserves.
Right.
It's fat reserves, or energy reserves, which is the fat, right?
Right.
Okay. So from the physical perspective, that's what's happening, right? But you have the fatigue, when you get hit with the fatigue, like, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do anymore physically. We've done it often, but it takes a certain amount of mental power,
right,
to be able to power the physical with this. Even when it's spent with all the other stuff. And so what we want to learn is engage this when we're fresh.
Right.
That's it. Instead of to where we're spent and now we have no other choice.
Right.
Can we do that when we're fresh? Use this intent-based power to power the physical body.
Right. Would that then ensure, well, okay, so now we're getting into working outs and weight gain and weight loss and all that. Mm-hmm. Would if we came from here versus would we be able to maintain our state as we choose to have it at all times?
That's a great question. So a lot of these things, like when I'm training martial artists or I'm training my students, and they're like, oh man, how are we going to remember all of that in a fight? The answer is you don't. The answer is the training you make you do it so much that it becomes a part of your natural makeup. It becomes a part of its alchemy. It becomes your normal.
Right.
So you don't have to think about it. You see, that's the whole thing.
It becomes part of your subconscious.
There you go. Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, back to the bioenergy. We were talking about bioenergy.
Yes.
So you said there was 3 points, and I took you away from your first point. So.
No problem. So the first one is what we call essence. That energy is the energy most associated with the physical body.
Okay.
It's the most dense. And then you have chi, which is higher vibration, produced here near the solar plexus. And then you have shen, which is even higher vibration. We call spirit, right? It's still a substance, but it's very rarefied. So one of the greatest analogies we can ever give for these three and how they interact is a candle. The candle itself is what we would call jing or essence. The flame we can call chi. The light in the entire room that it produces we call shen.
Right. Wow.
See? Yeah.
Right. That's amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so those are the 3 treasures. Now, and those 3 components basically, I don't want to use the word rule, but maintain or...
That trinity is the core of the bioenergetic body.
Okay.
That trinity is the core of the bioenergetic body. Yes. And what we want is all 3 of those centers where those energies are located. We want to, first thing to do is align them. It's like a dysfunctional family that doesn't speak to each other. First thing you got to do is you got to have a family meeting, get everybody together so they can communicate. So that's what physical alignment does.
Right. Physical
alignment allows us to align those centers so they communicate. When that happens, you have a standing column of energy that connects heaven and earth.
Amazing. Okay.
And it connects heaven and earth inside you.
Right. So when you're meditating, for example, and we got to take it here.
Yes.
When you're meditating, and whatever method you're using to meditate, does that alignment happen automatically? Yes.
Well, okay. So our idea of meditation is it's not something you do, it's a place you go.
Right. Of course.
Right. It's a state. So all these things, aligning the body, breathing a particular way, or whatever you do, are the vehicles or the means by which you get to that place.
Yeah, in our form of meditation, we don't do anything. We're just supposed to be there, and whatever is supposed to happen happens.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. A very famous occultist during the turn of the century. He was an Austrian occultist by the name of Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah, I'm very familiar.
Rudolf Steiner in his work, he talks about being able, the only way to study the energetic body or the other higher vehicles is to pop them out so you can see them.
Right.
And so he doesn't, in his public work or his lectures, he doesn't go into any detail as to how that's done. What you just described is one of the major means by doing that. Non-being allows you to observe it.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
In my religious tradition, we say it this way. We say, let's forget the flesh and go with mind into the land of fleshless things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it very correlates with the teachings in our Islam as well. How
it's so amazing that you're wow. Wow. Yes. We have a lot of similarities.
yes.
A lot of similarities, yes.
I've been studying a lot of Kemet and I've been studying a lot of Hakim Philip Bey, and I've been studying I can't recall the names right now, but I've been digging very much into Egyptian spirituality and African spirituality and yes. Because I've been finding answers there, and I've been drawn there too. And I was born in Africa, so
nice.
Maybe there's some connection there too, of course. And but yeah, something is drawing me there, and it seems to be taking me deeper into spirit. And so the people that I'm drawing into my life, they automatically seem to be leading me into the teachings of Kemet.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. There's in our history, there's a book called Stolen Legacy by a man named George G.M. James. And again, what he's doing, he's drawing historical links to show a spiritual continuity or a spiritual transmission.
Right.
And so what he talks about, and he's actually talking about, my actual ancestry, which is beautiful.
Right.
When Alexander the Great, invaded Egypt or Kemet, and then destroyed the libraries, this and the third, right? Millions of Egyptians moved further west into Northwest Africa, joining people that had already in the ages before, not ages, but many years before had left and established kingdoms, or later established kingdoms in Northwest Africa.
Right.
And so, which brings us right back to Africans going into Spain in the 8th century. And literally bringing Europe out of the Dark Ages with old Egyptian technology and old Egyptian culture.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a sense, whenever the West falls, the East comes along to bring its rise. In order,
to your point, I think what we're looking at right now, with the social upheaval, again, James Reston Jr.'s book, The Dogs of God, talks about something really interesting. Nearly all the things that we're talking about now in society, in the news and everything, these very issues were being spoken of in 1477 up to the 1490s in Spain.
Right.
So we're looking at the end of a cycle. We're looking at a forced return to the old ways of thinking. Right. Even cutting edge science, especially with with people from secret projects, black budget projects in the military or whatever, the direction science is now,
right,
is a return to the medieval magical world, basically.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Really interesting.
Because it has to be, because in order for us to evolve to the next level, there needs to be a shift, and it'll come, you know, in the Quran it says, you know, God works through conviction or conflict.
Yes. Yes.
So,
yes. Thought, we say it this way. Thought must, without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. And thought must be developed by the exercise of strength.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
There has to be that creative tension.
Right.
We're seeing,
because without it you can't see light without darkness, you can't see darkness without light, for example.
There you go. There you go. Yes. 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 That's right. That's right. You know, you got two, even with technology, right? You've got, you know, some of the things that are emerging, like artificial intelligence, you know, AI, and then all the ethical questions that come with it. You know, wait a minute, you're talking about literally creating a race of machines. Right. You're talking about a new life form that is not carbon based.
Right.
You're talking about what they say, playing God, right?
Right.
You know, there's positives to it, there's negatives to it. Reminds me in the Quran of Surah Al-Baqarah, right? Where Allah says to the angels, right? It also reminds, which is exactly the same as the Elohim in Genesis saying, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. We're at that point on a lower level right now in society.
Right. I'm getting goosebumps all down my back right now.
Yeah, we're at that point right now, you know? Yeah. You know, like the movies, the alien movies, you know, where you have the xenomorph, right? Everybody's thinking, well, not everybody, but the average person's like, oh, that's the alien. That's the monster. No, they were made, the whole series is making a very strong statement against artificial intelligence. Because who was the guy that kept making it happen, getting the xenomorphs to eat people and trying to preserve them? It was the androids.
Right.
Yeah. So it's the statement against artificial intelligence. You know, what you have is the primordial duality. You have, here we go, the seed that came from the heart of God, that is humanity.
Right.
The purpose for the seed is to grow.
Yeah.
Right? But you have to put a seed in a container. You have that container is the proper environment, or provides the environment for the seed to grow, but it also confines the seed. So what's the objective of the container? Confine the seed. What is the objective of the seed? Outgrow the container.
Right.
So you've got the duality.
So this step has to happen. This AI step has to happen for the seed to come out of the current container into another container.
So a manifestation of, right? So we're talking about greater evolution of containers to keep up with the growing unfoldment of the spiritual seed that is ourselves.
Right.
And that's also the conflict. So what do you got today? You got, hey, planet chip in my head. I can call all over the world just by thinking.
Right.
Or I could develop real telepathic abilities.
Right. And the reason, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, one retards thinking and development of thought.
Right.
The other necessitates
and amplifies it. So, or does it amplify it?
Or should. The idea is, remember, the seed is trying to outgrow the container. The container is trying to always contain the seed. So technology, when we, like for instance, the name of my organization, the Sagala Institute for Bioenergetic Transhumanism. Generally, when we talk transhumanism today, we're talking about cyborg technology. We're talking about merging machines with human. See, that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about bioenergetic transhumanism. This is the machine.
Right.
See?
Well, it makes me want to ask the question then whether the body's the container or the android's the container. Whatever it is, it's still a container.
Yes.
And secondly, that container is an illusion.
Absolute fact.
Right?
Absolute fact.
Because the physical reality is an illusion, so this vessel that we're in it too is an illusion.
Yes, it is.
Even though it's referred to as a temple, in all scripture, right? It's referred to as a temple. Right. So, and it's referred to as a temple because it's the main housing of what you're calling the seed or the heart of God.
There you go.
And it's the closest thing to the heart of God at this moment, this vessel.
That's right.
So that's why it's called a temple. So that's why we have to worship it, nourish it, and keep it in a state of peace or love or whatever you want to call it.
Because it is the actual altar for the altar fire, which represents the Creator himself.
So now when this seed goes into another artificial intelligence container, then that becomes a temple.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now think about what we're talking about now. Are we talking spirituality? Are we talking technology? The answer is yes to both.
Yes.
We're talking both, because on the spiritual side, yes, man is not the body, the soul. Man is spirit and part of God. True. How do we apply that technologically? Well, if we can scientifically transfer consciousness from one physical shell to another, this is already being talked about now in technology. That means we're talking about the possibility of terrestrial immortality right now.
Right. And is that even possible then?
According to many scientists that have worked with secret black budget projects, it's not just possible, it's routine.
It's routine. Wow.
If you talk to people like Randy Kramer, Randy Kramer, there's a number of people I can name. Randy Wittenheimer, Emery Smith. These these are all part. Yeah. These gentlemen have been, are, or have worked with black budget projects. Over the past few decades. Right.
And would you say then, like, it doesn't matter whether you take the red pill or the blue pill? Then, in other words,
you're gonna get there either way. You're gonna run into it either way.
Right.
Yeah.
So in other words, if we take it down to the building blocks, which is right now the vaccine. So whether you take the vaccine or not take the vaccine, you're going to get there. So it doesn't really matter.
Modification is modification. We're all in the soup together. We really are. We're all in the soup together,
So then the question arises, do you resist or do you submit?
This is deep, because at that point, only I can answer that for me, and only you can answer that for you. You know?
Right.
Yeah. Only I can do that. Sorry about that. So right. Yeah, only I can do that. Only I can pick red pill or blue pill for me.
Right.
Either way it goes, we all get to the destination eventually. Some sooner than others.
Right.
Some sooner than others, but we all get there eventually.
Okay, let's go back to energy, because that's our subject, metaphysics, right? Let's go back to energy. You talked about the three treasures. Let's talk about, let's compare now this three treasure system to the Hindu system of the chakras and colors and
okay, so
the Chinese system of the meridians, and
that's deep. So, for instance, like the chakra system, that's the Hindu, that's very popular Hindu system or Hindu model.
Right.
Let's look at it that way. Look at it as a model, right?
Right.
There's some ancient, and I'm sure you're aware of these, some ancient Islamic and pre-Islamic bioenergetic models.
Right.
Right. Even in China, the most common, again, this is because, going into the Cultural Revolution, 1966 in communist China, a lot of things were standardized.
Right.
So you have old classical pre-communist Chinese bioenergetic models that look nothing like the three treasures.
Right.
So there's some bioenergetic models that have 360 points of energy.
Wow.
Some that have 72 points of energy. Some that have 36.
Of course.
There's so many.
Right.
There's so many. My instructor taught us that at the higher levels, regardless of model or methodology, the whole body is the energy point.
Right. And it has to be so, because when you think about the Hindu system, like, it's not 7 chakras, it could be millions of chakras that you're working with.
Correct. That's a deep point. I'm glad you said this, because you have many of us that are what we call ivory tower occultists, ivory tower esotericists. We've read about things, and we read about one particular popular model, and we take that model to be everything.
Right. Yeah. We have so many different societies, cultures, time periods.
Yes.
Right. We have so much history. Absolutely. And every people has had to discover their inner self.
That's a fact.
So every people has discovered it in their own way. Just like you said, it's up to you whether you take the red pill or the blue pill, or up to me whether I take the red pill or the blue pill. Yes. Whatever was in their environment at the time, whatever was in their reality at the time, contributed to them getting to know more of themselves.
There you go.
And they use whatever that was at that time. So then we have all these various models. And as well, depending on how developed that society was in themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Not
as an individual, but as a society.
As a society.
The model changes.
Correct. That's very powerful thought right there. At a particular, for instance, in China, at a particular point in time in Chinese history, it was presumed that nearly 80% of the Chinese population were practicing some form of bioenergetic practice.
Right.
That's powerful. So you want to talk about elevation as a society was pretty, that's pretty huge. That's pretty huge. Right. I think personally, like when we talk about whole populations of people like that, I can't read, but I believe it was the Anasazi, how, this whole group of Native Americans just disappeared.
Right.
It's like, well, where did they go? Where they, now, of course, from a spiritual perspective, we have options, we have viable options in terms of what could have happened to them and where they may have gone.
Well, right? That's interesting, because now we're talking about individuals, humans disappearing versus something like the Bermuda Triangle, where physical matter disappears.
Right.
In both cases, it's physical matter disappearing.
That's right.
But in one, it's our creation and all its inhabitants, and the other, it's a disappearance. That's what's the word I'm looking for? One is sort of planned, the other one is sort of an accident. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Exactly. Like, for instance, in I believe, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, in the Ismaili tradition, we talk about the Ismaili, you've got in Shiaism, you've got 12er Shiaism and 7er Shiaism, right? And,
right.
So those imams can rightly be called post-humans.
Right. Right.
So, in other words, they have reached a level of human development that qualifies them to go to the next higher level of human development. And in this respect means they don't need these anymore.
Right.
They don't need, can they manifest physically? Sure. But right. Do they need them? No.
No, and they don't have the desire to either.
How about that? That's right.
Right. So because I'm in metaphysics and I ran a metaphysical store, and in that the biggest teaching was, you have to look to yourself before you look outside yourself, or you have to worry about yourself first before, this whole idea of the mask. You have to wear a mask. You have to wear your mask yourself before you put the mask on someone else.
How about
and
that?
I can't seem to get past that. I can't seem to get past that, because to me, it's always about the other person first. I can't seem to get past that whole idea of me first. And it seems counter to the truth, because that other person is me anyways.
How about that? How about that? How about
right?
that? Yes.
And that passion I put into that other person is more important than putting that compassion on me in that respect.
Let me tell you, that you just brought up what you just brought to mind is shout out to Dr. Bronner's soap, right? So they have all these quotes on, from Rabbi Hillel on Dr. Bronner's soap. And one of the quotes, to your point, or to what you were saying you're kind of struggling with, said this. Said, number one, if I first don't selfishly perfect myself,
right,
who am I? No one. Then it says, secondly, after selfishly perfecting myself, if I don't unselfishly work to uplift others, what am I? The answer is nobody.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, manifesting the physical realities isn't a desire for me. No matter what I do, I can't seem to want to produce, the houses and the cars or whatever. It's like something that just doesn't happen inside me, right? But I do want to produce the villages that are flourishing. I do want to produce the humans that don't have food in their mouths to have food in their mouths, right?
Yes. And in doing so, ideally, in shooting there, all those other things come as a consequence.
Right.
It's like even in martial arts, if I want to hurt this target, if I want to damage it, I don't hit at the surface. I'm not going to do anything no matter how hard I hit. I hit past the surface.
Right.
And by hitting here, I get everything in between.
Right.
Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, right?
Right.
Everything in between you get to.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful? Okay, back to the different models of the paradigms we have out there. Yeah. Can you talk about a few of them, what the differences are and how they came to be, and where we're at right now as a society, you think? Because I think right now as a society, because the majority doesn't know anything, they're gravitating to the Hindu model because that's what's predominant right now.
Yes.
And as we've categorized, there are more than the Hindu model out there for means of reaching that oneness that we're all wanting to reach to.
I think all of them are good. You know what it takes?
Of course.
It takes approaching, and I really, really mean this. It takes, we're lazy.
Yes, I agree.
We're lazy. We've been conditioned to be lazy, okay? Right. What it takes, I think all of them are good. Let's take the one that people know the most in the West, which is the Hindu model of the 7 chakras. Cool, let's take that. Seek to truly know it. You have to approach it like a professional athlete.
Right.
You have to approach it with that kind of discipline. What you have now today is people read a couple books and they say, oh, I can name that chakra. I can tell you the color of that chakra. And that's about as far as it goes.
Right.
And they think because they have an intellectual understanding of
the concept,
that they actually have something functioning when they do not.
No, because they haven't engaged it. They haven't practiced it. They've just.
So we have a saying, in order to know, you must first be what you know.
Right.
You have to be it. You know, if we're talking about, you know, let's talk about the base chakra. You could talk the base chakra. Hey, I'm balancing my base chakra. I've activated my base chakra. But if you're self-centered and arrogant and narcissistic, what you've done is you've energized an unbalanced base chakra.
Right.
You know, that's what you've done. You just energized an unbalanced one.
Right.
You know, and so we can know, if we understand the chakra system, we can know what's balanced and imbalanced just by our interactions in society with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so we want to know it like that. We don't want to, because you know we're looking for the esoteric fairy one night, because I read a couple books on chakras, to put the esoteric cookie under my pillow, and then I eat it, and all of a sudden I'm enlightened.
Yeah, it's the Nescafe solution that they're looking for, and it's not about that instantaneous. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not about that. It's not about it happening instantly, because you're already there.
How about that? How about that? How about that? It's funny. I was talking to a colleague of mine, and we were talking about astral travel.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, we were talking about how we've seen different methods of teaching how to astral travel, and you do this and you pop out of the body and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, wait a minute. You already have a body. You already have a body vehicle on that plane.
Right.
It's not a matter of you coming out of your body. It's a matter of you transferring a portion of your waking consciousness into the vehicle you already have on that plane.
Right.
You know, like you said, you're already there.
Right. So, yeah, and that's another thought that, you know, why am I wanting to come out of this body to go into another reality when I haven't mastered this reality yet?
How about that? How about that? That's dangerous. That opens the doors for other things. If we recognize that man is spirit, man's not the body or the soul, but we are locked into this flesh, like you said, we have a lot to learn right in this body.
Right.
We start vacating it to go explore it. First of all, we're leaving ourselves naked most of the time. Two, we'll come back to a house and somebody's occupying the house.
Right.
This, you know, a lot of people think that metaphysics and these types of topics only work if you believe it. Well, that's like telling the 5-year-old that's like telling the 5-year-old girl that she's safe from a rapist because she doesn't know what a rapist is.
Right.
You know? Yeah, so, this is very real exploration.
Yeah, somebody asked me just yesterday in one of the clubhouse groups, like, you know, what advice do you have for someone who wants to astral travel? And I said, well, first of all, you know God very, very closely. Number 2, master your senses here. Right? And then even don't even go anywhere till you've got those 2 down. So
Exactly. That's fact. You know, and, you know, it's, you know, let it be something, again, like we talked about before, instead of an effort, it's far safer and better when it's a result.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if it happens as a result, that means you're already prepared. You're already ready.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So same then with people who try to see auras and they try to improve their telepathy and all that. Really, they shouldn't be doing that necessarily. They should simply be, well, meditating and going within, and let that be a result of that.
They're focused on the symptoms of elevation instead of elevation itself.
Right.
Right.
Right. Okay, but now what about this whole idea of, well, 40 years of meditation versus, this Nescafe solution or this instant solution?
The Buddhists have an interesting take on that, and it's resulted in two different schools of thought in Buddhism.
Right.
The gradual school, the lightning school.
The gradual school and the lightning school, right?
Some say, well, enlightenment comes gradually, a series of small steps.
Yeah.
Some say it happens, boom, all at once.
Right.
Both sides say that an inhuman level of work is necessary either way you go.
Right.
You have to resign yourself to the process.
Right.
If you have lust for the end result, you won't get it.
Right. Right.
That's like me trying to diet to get down to a particular size, as opposed to dieting as a lifestyle to be healthy. And the result is I get to the size.
Right.
Yep.
Very powerful points we're discussing here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's talk about the ET connection now, because that's where we started.
Yes. That's who. Well, we're qualifying, and not just to, we're qualifying ourselves slowly but surely. And when I say we, I'm talking about humanity. We're qualifying ourselves to open the door to the next level of human evolution. Right. If I'm talking about bioenergetic training to amplify what we call normal,
right,
that means that if I can amplify it and my normal can be higher than the average normal, that means that the average is in normal. This is what it means.
Right.
It means that we are less human instead of more human.
Right.
So why can't there be humans on a planet in Alpha Centauri?
Well, they can, because anything's possible, period.
Correct. And what would we call them, aliens or humans, just because they belong, just because they're on another planet?
Well, these are all labels, right, that we've created that don't need to exist. Because honestly, my understanding of this whole alien thing is, and I don't know if it's innate or somehow I concocted it, is it's just us. It's us that have gone forward in time.
How about that?
And are coming back to warn us or guide us or whatever, or be friends with us or whatever, because now they've figured out, quote unquote, how to reach back to where they were.
Remember earlier in our conversation, we talked about a shifting of worldviews back to the old worldview.
Right.
How the worldview that, Darwinism, we evolved from this to this to this, and then to apes to humans, and we were in caves and blah, 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 blah. How that's new.
Right.
And the old worldview is, nope, we measure time in cycle ages.
Right.
This has happened before, and over and over and over. We have had periods of high technological advancement.
Right.
We've been here before. That being said, why another statement in that worldview is this: the spark of life within life doesn't change.
Right.
Its shell, its manifest, its container evolves into perfection of its kind. So follow me, right?
Right.
You got dinosaurs during the Cretaceous period, during the millions of years ago.
Right.
You mean to tell me, so and a meteor comes along and crashes into the Caribbean and poof out more dinosaurs.
Right.
So could there be, and this is rhetorical, I'm being rhetorical, could there be a connection in terms of development and evolution? Millions of years of dinosaurs, right down to, let's say, the velociraptors, who scientists now admit, velociraptors in that time could communicate with each other.
Right.
Okay, what would they look like millions of years later if they continued to evolve? probably the reptilians that people are talking about today that they see.
Yeah. Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah, I hear you.
How about the Hopi Indians, you know, during the cataclysm years and hundreds of years ago, having to go into caves and being helped by what they called the ant friends. You know how what they called them in their language? The word ant was Anu, and the word friend was Naki.
Naki, yeah.
Right? So am I saying that they're related etymologically with the Sumerian term? Maybe, maybe not. I will say this. They called them ant friends, and in an area not too far from that, years ago, there was an accidental bumping into an underground base near the Archuleta Mesa, which with insectoid aliens, which resulted in a firefight and some other issues happening. You know, this is all well known.
Right.
So, and those, what is said about those aliens by insiders is that they're not aliens. Right. They are homegrown here.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if they're homegrown here, and then maybe the reptilians are also homegrown here.
Right.
And maybe these whatever beings, quote unquote, basically wanted to escape this reality from bondage or whatever you want to call it, and escape this reality to other worlds. And now, after experiencing those other worlds, is returning to bring us all home, for lack of a word.
Absolutely. Or they're here, maybe, because, you know, they hear me. It's like the Star Trek principle of the Prime Directive.
Right.
They had to evolve without interference, because that's what's fair. They can't interfere with ours, but they can observe.
Yes.
And being, if they're, let's say, being them homegrown, while they can't interfere and they have to allow us to evolve, they still also have a stake in the fate of Earth. So there may be times when they are forced to intervene because of our shenanigans.
Right, of course. I was watching a movie where these firefighters were being shot down because they were releasing some kind of nuclear, and this other, for lack of a better word, spaceship comes along and shoots it down, except not to death. Their weapon is destroyed, their vehicle is destroyed, and they land, their physical bodies land on the Earth. Nice. So they're a bit broken, but you know,
you're okay.
they're okay. They'll survive.
Right.
And one guy is like, you know, those MF assholes, right? You know, they're this, and the other guy finally, after dialogue back and forth, says, well, maybe they were trying to help us. Look what we were trying to do. Right. And that's so it took that shift in consciousness, or that shift in understanding, or that shift in mindset to conclude that.
Yes, absolutely. You know, so, you know, there's a lot of moving parts to, you know, contributing to our circumstances, giving rise to new circumstances, you know, and we are slowly qualifying ourselves to play a larger part in those circumstances, you know.
Right.
Yeah, slowly, but it's happening. Some will move ahead.
So have you been involved in the space?
Okay.
Because when you speak, it seems like there's nuances or hints of that.
Well,
at least you're knowledgeable about it.
Yeah. One of the things that I've come to realize Well, the simple answer, the simple answer, the oversimplified answer is no.
Okay.
But that's an oversimplified answer, and I'm going to tell you why. Right? I'll tell you why. There has long been a direct connection on many levels between secret and occult orders and Black budget scientific projects,
right,
and the intelligence community.
right.
There's a long-standing connection. One of the most famous is Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons, you familiar with Jack Parsons?
Yeah.
Jack Parsons, you know, member of the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, right? And a scientist for Jet Propulsion Laboratory, working on exotic propulsion systems.
Right.
There you go. You know, of course, there's the other more well-known connections. For instance, with the Nazi Party, which grew out of the political arm of an esoteric order called the Thule Society.
Right.
Right. We all know this, and how Dr. Wernher von Braun, who pretty much, the NASA and the American space program was pretty much the neo-Nazi space program.
Right.
Okay, it's true. And that being said, Wernher von Braun has gone on public record more than once to say we got help from those guys.
Right.
But that help, the connection between so-called aliens and those scientists was facilitated by people in occult orderism. This is well documented.
Right.
So my point being, in a number of these orders, real occult orders, right, there's research and development. As you put it before, it happens in here on the self. And then our results, we make reports of them.
Right.
You understand? And then, like I said, there's interface between the intelligence community, scientific community on Black budget projects, occult orderism. So there's a share of information, and the information that gets pulled from the higher realms through occult research ends up as physical technology many times.
Right.
So I said, on the surface, am I a part of that stuff? On the surface, no, I don't have a Q clearance. I don't have any of that stuff.
Right.
But because of the development of what I and others like me are involved in, we are active contributors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because there isn't communities all over the world that are what's the word, constructively going within to know themselves.
There you go. And the result of what you find spiritually, like I said, right? Think about it. The pyramids in Egypt, the pyramids in Kemet, those are physical representations of the results of the religious priesthood in ancient Kemet.
Right.
So their excursions into higher realms manifested with a physical object.
Right.
So when we look at the pyramid, we're looking at their spiritual excursions. Why would it be any different today? It's not different. And there's, especially now in Black budget projects, secret projects, there's how do you keep it secret? Compartmentalization.
Right.
Me at my desk, doing a particular study, and then, sending it to one of my superiors in a particular order.
Right.
Somehow now becomes, right, the direction of study from a scientist in somewhere near Palo Alto, California.
Right.
Who knows? You see, I don't know what they're working on. They don't even know who I am. But we're all end up working on the same thing. We just don't know.
Right.
Yes.
It's like this whole idea of Darwin and Wallace, for example. Darwin got his information from Wallace, who was a consciousness researcher.
Absolutely. You've got Oppenheimer, who worked on the Manhattan Project. when the first test happens, it's like, oh my God, what does he do? He quotes Hindu text.
Right.
Behold, I am death, I become death to destroy your worlds. Why does he quote that? Because in those very texts, it talked about the same type of destruction happening at the hands of man-made mechanisms.
Right.
In ancient time.
Right.
You know, in ancient time. You know, you've got an insider, Randy Kramer, right? Who's an exopolitics liaison for the U.S. Marine Corps.
Right.
Right. Who was talking about propulsion systems, exotic propulsion systems, which are only exotic to us. They're routine to them, right?
Right.
And talks about an electrogravitic system, and the basis of which is a mercury vortex mechanism. Just so happens that the Vedas in India speak about mercury vortex engines for Vimana and Belixi.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
None of this is new. It's not new.
It's not new.
We're catching up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because even like, you know, little things like that are mentioned in the Quran scientifically.
Yes.
We're discovering now.
Yes. Yes. There's I recently wrote an article talking about technology.
Okay.
And, you know, and it's a branch of technology that's somewhat outlawed in America, right?
Okay.
And it's technology that interfaces with consciousness.
Okay.
Okay. And there was a 15th century mechanism, Persian Islamic,
Right.
that was put, and I posted a picture of it. It actually exists. Well, it actually is in the British Museum.
Okay.
It's in the British Museum, and
Right.
so and it measured telluric energies in the earth.
Right.
Right. And you know, and so, but it was 15th century.
Right.
15th century Islamic machine with Arabic inscriptions on it, with the dials and everything.
Right.
It looked like something out of an H.G. Wells novel. It did.
Right. And so Persian Islamic, so was that Fatimid or was it?
Yes.
It was. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've been, you know, the Western New World, Western civilization has been in a bubble.
Right.
It's been in a bubble.
Right.
And not a very big one. Not a very big one. For the past 500 years, it's been in a bubble.
Right. So is that because somewhere, somehow, someone realizes that this consciousness isn't ready to expand?
Well, they didn't.
Or is it a case of somebody trying to contain consciousness so it doesn't expand?
There you go. What you just said, there you go. There you go. Aleister Crowley talked about a real war between good and evil, quote unquote. But he said the objective of evil is to stop people from thinking.
Right.
That's it. To stop you from thinking. When I make you comfortable, when I make you complacent, you don't have to think. You see? That's what the container does.
Right.
Interestingly, right? An author, a Kabbalistic author by the name of Carlos Suarez, he wrote a book called The Cipher of Genesis. Great book. In it, he talks about these things. He talks specifically about the purposeful mistranslation of the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Wow.
In the Aramaic, good is mistranslated from the word tov, and the word evil is mistranslated from the word ra. Tov is translated as good, ra is translated as evil. The actual definition of tov does not mean good. It means to make stable, to make stagnant, to make unmoving.
Right.
The actual definition of Ra means to stir up, to
Right.
cause, to move, to
Right.
agitate.
So the destroyer and the creator.
Well, kind of, or the one that retards thinking and the one that generates thought.
Oh, wow.
The one that generates thought they call evil. The one that causes you to not think, they said that's good.
Wow, that's completely makes it feel completely opposite. And then when you say Tov and Ra, it brings me to Torah, which may very well be Tov Ra.
Interesting. Interesting. Right. Very interesting. But now the story, it changes the whole Garden of Eden story.
Right.
You know, maybe the serpent wasn't bad.
Right.
Maybe the serpent, you know, in certain esoteric circles, the serpent is a representation of the Martian energies or the Martian entities, right? Samael, building the ego, the indwelling ego, into the hemoglobin of human blood.
Right.
And then man becoming self-aware.
Right.
There we go.
So the question is the fact that man becomes self-aware godly or demonic now?
Both.
Both.
Knowing higher self and lower self.
Right.
Both.
Because really, that only exists in duality anyways.
How about that? Because that's
oneness, because in oneness, Satan and God don't exist. So
in the religious perspective, right, a simple but often overlooked truth: the devil is not God's adversary. The devil is man's adversary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking the Quranic perspective of how God asks all the angels to bow down to Adam and not so Iblis. Iblis was the one that didn't bow down to Adam. And then God says, you're banished.
Yes.
So just because he's banished doesn't mean that he's God's adversary. It simply means that he's man's adversary.
And then there you go. And then later in the Quran, they make a deal. They shoot dice, basically, on man. They make a deal. That he asks Allah for a time, a respite, a bubble of time.
Yes. Yeah.
And God grants it to him. Says, "Do your thing. Let's see what happens."
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is incredible.
I had a lovely, lovely, lovely discourse with you, and thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to go a little bit further, if I may. I don't know what your time's like.
Sure.
I want to talk about, I want to know how, like Egypt. Let's just talk about Egypt, right? So we have ancient Egypt, we have pre-Fatimid Egypt, we have post-Fatimid Egypt, and we have the archaeological discoveries of Egypt. So let's just talk about Egypt for a second and tell me your knowledge of the progression of Egypt.
I could stand to learn much more about ancient Egypt. What I can say, is like past post 18th dynasty, for instance.
Okay.
Post 18th dynasty, a lot of post 18th dynasty, you had a shift, so to speak.
Right.
In other words, a point where they were kind of put to sleep too.
Right.
Where there was a break in the continuity of knowledge from the ancient times, and they spoke of it as if time's gone by.
Right.
When you're talking 18th dynasty, pre-18th dynasty, you're talking about some pretty amazing stuff. You're talking about a time period when the ideal of humanity being off-world was commonplace.
Right.
You know, you're talking about a time period like, you know, the Western world calls the book of the coming forth by day. They call it the book of the dead. You know?
Right.
Yeah, it's a total, you know, you're trying to apply new world Western thought to something that it doesn't fit at all.
Right.
You know, to say that Osar or Osiris was an alien, right? Is to apply, follow me, is to apply our myopic new world conceits on something way so grand it's not even funny. If you had to put it to you like this, watch this.
Okay.
We've got Elon Musk,
yeah,
pretty much looking like he's going to win the race to Mars.
Right.
And I'm talking about putting a colony of humans on Mars permanently.
Right.
Do you know what their children are going to look like?
Mm.
They're going to be living on a planet with less gravitation than Earth. They're going to be living on a planet where the angles and the magnitudes of stellar energy are going to be different from Earth.
Earth, yeah.
They will be aliens from our myopic perspective.
Yes, yes.
A generation later. They will be aliens. But are they aliens or are they human?
No, they're human. Yes. The form doesn't matter.
Thank you. And so that 18th dynasty going back
right,
was the norm for the ancient Egyptians of that time period.
Right.
That was the norm for the ancient Sumerians.
Right.
And everything that came with that.
Right.
If consciousness can be voluntarily and purposely transferred from one vessel to another, then the implications are all there. Terrestrial immortality was a fact.
Right.
You see? Which means what? Body banks were a fact.
Right.
You get up today and say, "Oh, I'm tired. I got wrinkles," and you go to your closet and pull out a new body instead of a new set of clothes.
Right.
You see, all of you know.
We can talk about it forever.
But here's the thing: we've been taught in the West what to think, not how to think.
Right.
So we can shift thinking to the perspective of our ancients.
Right.
And we're looking at the world a different way, and all these things now become possible.
Right.
Now it becomes.
And when you talk about body banks, you're talking about physical body banks.
Yes.
But then as a being, I have access to my spiritual body bank.
How about that? Yes. Yes. So now we're back on the topic of, do we support the container or do we support the seed? Right? The point is, that's the primordial duality. The seed goes in the container, outgrows the container. We need a bigger container. And you have the primordial duality, right? To quote,
but again, bigger or smaller is an illusion.
There you go. Yeah. So, but to quote the Oracle in the Matrix series,
right?
Her thing was, the only way out of this is for us to work together. To her, it wasn't a matter of, is it the seed or is it the container?
Right.
We need both.
Yes.
We need both. So I'm all for technological advancement as long as it does not retard spiritual technology.
Right.
As long as it doesn't make me lazy so I no longer think.
Right.
I'm not talking about going back to the horse and buggy days. That's crazy.
Right.
I love technology. I love gadgetry. But guess what? This is technology. But guess what? Human interaction is a technology.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's sociotech. There's biotech. There's bioenergetic technology. There's, you see?
Yeah.
Human interaction is a technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you keep pointing here to the mind. What about the heart?
Of course. Of course.
Okay.
Of course. You know, cutting edge science now shows that what do you got? You got a fluid.
Yeah.
You got a nerve plexus.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
you got bioelectricity, or you got a nerve plexus. So you got the bioelectricity. You got a fluid medium. What do you
Right.
got? You have a mind.
You have a mind. Yeah.
Just like the 7 chakras, same thing. You got a nerve plexus. You got an organ, the endocrine, you know, the particular gland of the endocrine system. You have a secretion. You got a fluid. Those 3 things together. What do you got? You got a form of consciousness. So those 7 chakras are like 7 lesser brains in the body of man.
Right.
And in their measure have the ability to think.
Right.
Yes. So yes.
But are we not devolving by focusing on these chakras versus evolving? Because to me it feels like when somebody says, you know, focus on your solar plexus or focus on your root chakra, well, why am I doing that?
So now that's deep. See, because now we're talking methodology. Right? Because this stuff has always been secret.
Right.
It still is secret.
Still a secret. Yeah.
Yes. And we call these like open secrets, meaning if you don't work the methodology, you won't get the result. That's why it's secret. Because the only way to do it, the only way to know it is to do it.
Right.
It's an open secret because maybe you're given the methodology, but if you don't work it, it's still a secret to you, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, let's take Manly P. Hall. He hinted at something very powerful in one of his pieces of literature. Okay. He said, it's a dangerous methodology to try to climb from the bottom to the top as it relates to the chakras.
Right.
He hinted at a methodology that lights up here and goes top down like a Christmas tree.
Right.
He hinted at another methodology approaching it from the top down.
Right.
Instead of the bottom up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with you, because what ends up happening is interesting. You a lot of people not really fully understanding themselves and not really fully understanding that whole chakra system thing. They throw by focusing on one particular one or whatever. Remember, it's a system.
Right.
It's a system, so one affects the other, which affects the other, which affects the other, which affects the other. If I do too much focus on one, I may throw off the balance of others.
Right.
You know? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is the danger I see in that.
Yes. Yes. You have to have sound methodology.
Even the simple thing like, you know, let's say you're doing a chakra cleansing and I don't know, you're working on your root and the phone rings, so you go to answer your phone and now you haven't finished your whole chakra cleanse. A simple thing like that, I think, could be dangerous.
Like I said, we have to really approach this thing like a professional athlete with that kind of seriousness. We got to approach it like a prize bodybuilder who tweaks his diet or her diet. Like, you have to approach it that way because first of all, it's that important. Secondly, you deserve it.
Right.
You don't want to play with ourselves.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
So it's really interesting because, I mean, like there's forms of meditation where you're given a mantra by a guide or a leader or whatever, and you do the mantra and it's really simple. You just sit quietly and you don't do anything, you focus on the mantra. Right. But those people want something more.
You know, you know what it is? You know, you know this though. Profundity is found in simplicity.
Right, of course.
But what do we want? You know, we want all the bells and whistles.
Right.
You know, we want all the extra attachments. You know, we want all the extra stuff. Right. You know, and that's a problem. We have spiritual ADHD.
So when we say are we referring to our ego self then? I'm
referring to the generality of humanity.
Right.
You know, yeah. But those of us that are on the actual path, I'll still say we, because we have to make that part of us submit.
Right. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. We have to make that part of us submit. It's like this one, I forget his name. He was a Sufi mystic.
Okay.
I forget his name, but he was getting ready to pray. And as he was getting ready to make salah, he saw in the corner of the door, sitting in the corner of the door, was a black cat.
Right.
And with his spiritual sense that's a jinn.
Right.
But he watched it. The cat did nothing. Cat just sat there. So he said, all right. He does his prayers.
Right.
But now he's curious. So he gets done. He goes over to the cat. He goes, I see what you are. I know what you are. Right? But my question is, you all try to distract the righteous so they don't get the blessing from their prayer. You didn't bother me. Why?
Right.
And the cat said, oh, we all know who you are. We know that if we had distracted you, you would have made up with it with 10 times more prayers. So we denied you the extra benefit.
Oh. Right.
So it's the craftiness of our own lower selves that we have to be ever vigilant vigilant.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So there's the generality of humanity that goes that way because we've been conditioned to. We've been conditioned to not think. We've been conditioned to be lazy, right? But what are we looking at when we see that in the world, in society, on our televisions? We're looking at a projection of what exists inside of us already.
Absolutely.
You know, the hellish world we live in right now is a shadow of our own lower selves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes me wonder how we got here.
Yeah. How we got to this point, right?
How we got to this point, yeah. How did we go in the opposite direction so badly? Yeah. Instead of,
you know, from the religious perspective, regardless of religious or faith tradition,
yeah,
we all need to ask ourselves the question: why did God deem it necessary for us to suffer like this? What did we do so bad?
Right. Well, we desire to be God, I think.
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah.
So God's like, okay, come on, let's see what you can do.
Let's see what you can do. Let's see. Right. Let's see.
That's that Allah Iblis story we just talked about, right?
Yes.
Because right in the Quran it also says like God asked everyone. Well, no, he basically said about this free will, and then he asked all of creation who wants free will.
Yes.
And all of creation says no, except for man.
Except for man. That's right. We talk. That's very deep. You know, that's a very deep topic to have free will. Free will, the ability to choose, is powerful. But guess what? It's a result of not being able to know what happens in the next 3 seconds.
Right.
Because if I know what's going to happen tomorrow, there's no need to choose. I already know.
Yeah.
No need to make a choice.
Right.
We'd be beyond choice.
Right.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
It was awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, maybe we should do this again one of these days.
I think we should do this again.
Okay.
I think we should do this again.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure.
Oh, pleasure is all mine. Pleasure is all mine. Beautiful. It's so refreshing, you know, to meet you.
Especially again, same you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Take care.